That was an enlightening address. Now I request our volunteer Dharmesh to present a set of books to our invited guest, Professor M. Sachinarayan. Shri N Santosh Hegde was born on 16th of June 1940. Shri Santosh ji has worked as the Advocate General for the state of Karnataka, then twice as Solicitor of Union of India, then as Judge of Supreme Court of India. He was Lokayukta of Karnataka state for 5 years. He has visited more than 600 educational institutes, inspiring students to lead a strong and corruption-free life. Swami Vivekananda said, "Money does not pay, nor name. Fame does not pay, nor learning. It is love that pays. It is character that cleaves into its way through adamantine walls of difficulties." Now, I, on behalf of VSC IIT Madras, request Shri Santosh ji to deliver his speech on character building as the foundation for a corruption-free India.
Respected Swami Shraddhan Ji Maharaj, other equally respected Swami Ji is present in the hall today. Professor M. Sachinarayan, other members of the teaching faculty, invitees if any, my dear students of IIT Madras. I've been called upon to give my views on character building as a foundation to corruption-free India. While I agree that character building is the most important factor to reduce corruption, I personally do not think corruption is something which could be eradicated in its entirety. I think corruption was born with the birth of civilization itself. It's not the existence of corruption per se which is causing problems, but it's the growth of corruption, especially in the last 50 years, which is really causing concern to our nation today. Just see the growth of zeros in the amounts involved, at least in those scams which have come out in the public domain. In 50s, there was one big scam, the Jeep scam. It's in regard to purchase of Jeep vehicles for the armed forces, and it was mentioned that 52 lakhs of rupees was lost to this country. Of course, in 50s, 52 lakhs was a big amount, but just count the number of zeros in that figure. There were many scams in that decade. There was the Bharat Bank scam, where Ramakrishna Dalmia was involved. LIC scam, where Mundra was involved. Nagarwala scam, and so on and so forth. In 86, there was a scam, Bofis. The amount involved was 64 crores rupees. 2010, we had two scams that came to the public domain. The amount lost was assessed by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India at for 2G, 1.76 lakh crores rupees. from 64 crores, 1.76 lakh crores rupees. Same year, Commonwealth Games scam was there, 70,000 crores. 2012, it was Colgate, 1.86 lakh crores of rupees. Can this country afford diversion of such huge amounts? These are out of 4 or 5 scams which I mentioned. There must have been 500 scams which never came to the public domain. Out of the ones that I mentioned, if this much of money has been siphoned off, how can there be any development whatsoever, irrespective of the fact what our political leaders say? Karnataka budget for the year 2012-2013 for the entire state of Karnataka, consisting about 6.2 crores of people, it's 1,36,000. I mean, 1,36,000 crores. Whereas in one scam, you are losing 1 crore 86 lakh crores, I mean, 1,86,000 crores. Where is the money for development? This type of siphoning of funds shows there is development only in the number of zeros involved in the scam. It has cascading effect on all other system of governance in this country, like with healthcare, education, and very many other important areas about which I will be speaking briefly. What is the reason for this? I think a large section of the people in power, be it political power or executive power, are suffering from a disease which I have termed it as greed over need disease. It has no cure as far as I know, highly contagious. The sooner we contain it, I'm not saying again eradicate it, contain it at a level where country can sustain itself with those scams being in existence. Yes, the topic of the day is character building as the foundation of a corruption-free society. It's a character which is being diluted in the social circles, the society as such. Let me now take you to 3 of the constitutional organs. Why 3? The 4th one, that is the media, which came upon its own to compete with the other 3 constitutional organs, and see how it functioned at a point of time when we got independence and thereafter maybe for a decade or 2. In 1946, in anticipation of independence, our country constituted a council of members called the Constituent Assembly. This consisted of various representatives, some elected, some nominated. The proceedings went on from 1946 till 1949. What a dignified manner in which our representatives functioned there. This has to be compared with what's happening in the present day elected bodies. This indicates the degradation of character in these institutions. The very first question that came up before the Constituent Assembly was what type of a political system that this country should adopt. There were many systems available internationally. There was the monarchy, there was dictatorship, the ism-based political system. But our leaders of those days who spoke, they spoke with emotion. They said, we Indians were never ever independent. We were always under the thumbs of powerful people. We were under the Rajas and Maharajas. We were under the Zamindars. were under the foreign rule. And those people made the law. They never consulted us. And we had to suffer the consequences of violating those laws. And those members said, now that we are going to become independent, let's adopt a political system by which every Indian feels that I am a free man. This country is mine. This country is being governed by me or my representatives. It's a great feeling. And there was a system available, the democracy. Our elders in the Constituent Assembly accepted that political system wholeheartedly. At that point of time, I'm deliberately saying this, that point of time. The meaning or the definition of the word democracy was government of the people, by the people, for the people. The persons who sat in the assemblies to make laws or policies, be it the parliament or the state assemblies, were our representatives, chosen by us to serve us, meaning the nation. Service is not a bad term. Servant is not a bad term. It is not a demeaning term. Everybody who fought for the freedom of this country loved to be called the servant of the nation. That was in their mind. That is how they served. Many issues came. I'll give one example only before I go to the real essence. When they decided to give the voting rights to every adult Indian citizen, a question arose whether any person contesting to become a representative of the people, should there be an educational qualification imposed on him. Many elders, respected people, they said, right to vote is different from right to contest. The person who is going to contest is going to be a representative. He must have some understanding power of the problems of his constituents and must have the capacity to explain it to the other members in the house, convince them and get a solution for those problems. Therefore, there is a need for at least some qualification which will fulfill these requirements. The editor of the Constituent Assembly debates writes at the bottom of the page, practically the entire house agreed with the suggestion that was made. But before the debate ended, one person stands up and addresses the house. He says, President sir, recently we adopted democracy as the system of governance in this country. You explained to us and convinced us democracy means it's the government of the people, by the people, for the people. And today, you say to become a part of the representative system, you must have an educational qualification. We are 40 crores population, this is 1946. 40 crore population in this country, out of which 80% of the Indians are total illiterates. You want to have a 20% democracy in this country? Again the editor writes, the entire house was silent. Nobody immediately reacted. One man saying this. Then another, then Baba Saheb Ambedkar stands up and says, I am sorry that I was a party to this suggestion. I did not look at it from the point of view the honorable member is saying it. And I say he is right, I am wrong. And without further discussion, the House said we will not put any qualification to contest in the Constitution of India. Let that be discussed in the Representation of People's Act, which is only a statutory bill. My dear friends, see the dignity with which the House conducted itself. I am saying for the last 3-4 months, about 3-4 sessions have taken place. And I don't think any full day the session has gone on. No bills have been passed as yet. This is the difference between 1946, leaders of 1946 and leaders of today. Again, what is lacking? Lacking is good character. Let me just point out from a speech which I delivered some time back, which is titled as "What is Left of Democracy," to show what really happens in the parliament, and you can guess from it what is the actual situation. On 19th of February 2009, when some of the parliament members stormed the well of Loksabha, shouting the choicest expletives, the Honorable Speaker then said, "You do not deserve 1 paisa of public money." The Honorable Speaker is addressing the honorable members of the Lok Sabha. You do not deserve 1 paisa of public money. I think the Parliament should be adjourned sine die. Public money should not be spent on useless allowances for you. I express my greatest annoyance and condemnation. And he further said, all of us in Parliament need to be concerned about the disorderly behavior in the House and endeavour to restore true democratic culture into the functioning of these institutions. Once people lose faith in the system, no force, no army can help to save the system. You are not serving the people by shouting. Look at your behavior. You are threatening. I am not going to accept this. You should know how to behave in this house. Continuing further in Hindi, which if translated, he said, they don't read anything, nor do they listen. This is exactly what the Honorable Speaker of that time, Shri Somnath Chatterjee, told the members of Lok Sabha. I'll give you some statistics. Statistics show in 2007, Rajya Sabha passed 32% of the bill with little or no discussion. Percentage of the bills passed with almost no discussion in the Rajya Sabha increased from 26% in 2005 to 32% in 2007. During the same period, the number of bills on which the substantial debate took place reduced from 29% in 2005 to 24% in 2007. Out of 485 Lok Sabha members, MPs, which does not include ministers, only 107 opened their mouth to speak. I deliberately say open their mouth to speak, they might have opened it to yawn, that's a different thing. Opened their mouth to speak, 107 out of 485. In 5 years, not even, only once at least, 107 opened their mouth. While addressing the 14th All India Whips Conference, February 2008, His Excellency the Vice President of India stated, and I quote him, "Single most important issue of concern today is the decreasing credibility of our legislators as effective institutions capable of delivering public good and contributing to the effective formulation of laws and public policies. The instrumentalities at the disposal of the legislatures has either been blunted or has become dysfunctional." A recent statistics from Election Watch indicates, this is not the quotation of the Excellency the Vice President, this is from Election Watch, indicates 150 MPs in the current Parliament have criminal records, an increase of 17.2% over the previous Lok Sabha. There are 412 criminal cases against MPs put together. There are 12 MPs with serious criminal charges against them, which is 1 in every 13 MPs. While this is the criminal background, an article published in Deccan Herald dated 19th November 2009 under the title Business of Politics, Why Madhukoda is Not an Exception, and states, and I quote, an analysis of recontesting candidates for the last Loksabha elections revealed that the average asset value of all these MPs was 287%, equal to 2.7 crore for each MP. The maximum asset increase from 9.137%. Surely this is the business to be in, if there is one. There are any number of quotations are there, and other extracts from the newspaper which I put in there. I don't want to repeat it here, it may not be necessary. But one thing I have to point out, just as an example, doesn't apply only to the person which is mentioned there, that there was a chief minister for 2 years in Jharkhand. His name was Madhukoda. He is Madhukoda still. In 2 years, the CBI has filed a charge sheet now stating that he has amassed a wealth of 4,000 crores. In 2 years, he was a workman in a mine. He had a great opportunity of earning this money. And it's one of the examples. There are any number of examples, it's there here. Why is this? The answer is in the topic of the day today, because the character is getting diluted for the worse. Let's take the bureaucrats. In the Constituent Assembly, there were serious debates asking to protect the bureaucrats because they are holding delicate positions. Therefore, we incorporated in the Constitution of India Article 309 to Article 311, which protects their tenure in office. What do we see? Uttar Pradesh IAS Officers Association passed a resolution identifying the most corrupt IAS officer in the state of Uttar Pradesh. That is the case. Actually, they are competing either with the elected representatives or they are conjoined twins, as I would call them, because if either the bureaucrat or the political leaders or the governments do not indulge in corruption, there can be no corruption. Because they are together, all these 2Gs, Jeep scams and Colgate scams occurred. They were once most respected people. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Today, again, it is the loss of character in them, the good character. Let's come to the judiciary. Our judiciary, of which I was a part of it, was highly respected. Today, it is comparatively more respected. There's a lot of difference between the two. In 1999, in 1990, there were serious allegations made against a sitting judge in the Supreme Court. And the President of the Bar Association of Supreme Court, the Attorney General of India, made a joint representation to then the Chief Justice of India, Mr. Sabyasachi Mukherjee. They wanted strict action to be taken so that it will not only send a message to other members in the judicial system, but also to the people that judiciary does not push the scam under the carpet. Then Chief Justice said, I will retire to my chambers and I'll come back at 4 o'clock and express my views in this matter. And he came back at 4 o'clock and this is what he said. This is an unprecedented and an embarrassing situation. It called for caution and establishment of a salutary convention. The Supreme Court must uphold the rule of law. It is therefore necessary that those who uphold the rule of law must live by the law, and judges must therefore be obliged to live according to law. We must therefore ensure that there is no conduct of a judge which affects the faith of the people that judges live according to law. I was constrained in these circumstances to call my brother judge to desist from discharging judicial functions so long as the investigations continue and his name was cleared on this aspect. Since I have assured the learned Attorney General, the Law Minister and the President of Bar Association and others that I will look into it, I thought I must convey to you the result of my looking into it, and the judge concerned did not participate in the proceedings until the impeachment proceedings in the Parliament was defeated. So an opportunity to cleanse the judiciary was lost. This is 1990. Thereafter, we have heard of the case in Chandigarh High Court, Punjab and Haryana, where a lady judge was suspected to have received a huge amount of money on one of those days when the Independence Day was being celebrated. And the Chief Justice of Punjab and Haryana High Court held an inquiry with other brother judges together and found a particular lady judge responsible for it. And the matter was referred to the Supreme Court. Then the Chief Justice referred it to the Attorney General of India, who didn't agree with the views of the committee appointed by the Chief Justice. So that particular judge was transferred without stigma. I spoke in one of the occasions and I questioned the decision of then the Chief Justice of India. If the Honorable Judge was not guilty, then why is this transfer which gives a wrong impression to the people? If the Honorable Judge is guilty, then transfer is not the punishment that would be imposed. And recently CBI has concluded its inquiry investigation and has filed a charge sheet against that judge. There's a case of another Calcutta judge who was sought to be impeached, then he resigned, so impeachment proceedings were dropped. And this indicates towards what direction are we going. This indicates the rot in various constitutional institutions. Let me now come to the fourth estate, an organ publicly recognized not by the Constitution but by the nation as an institution which is fit enough to be in equivalence with the constitutional organs, the media. It attained that status because of its impartiality, honesty. Recently, we've been hearing about the paid news concept. That is nothing but bribery, receiving money, then writing a false article. That matter is now being considered by the Supreme Court. A conversation between a very big industrialist and a particular lady who is the middleman for the media is being now investigated. What is left of democracy then? Why is it happening like this? But for the fact these institutions, or at least those involved in these institutions, are suffering from the disease which I termed as greed over need disease. What's the answer to this? our country claims a culture of 5,000 years. We taught the other countries in the world what culture is, values, followed by our forefathers. I don't see that anymore. Because I think those institutions which are inculcating these values in us have themselves lost their values in us. I take the family value. The children learn first from the family. The economic change in this country makes both husband and wife work for it. They don't have the time. They don't know the parables that you can teach the children. Convert them into a path of honesty, morality. We don't learn in this house. You go to educational institutions. When I was studying, there was a subject called moral science and civics. Moral science taught me the values that I must behave in a society. Civics taught me my right vis-a-vis the right of others. Today, I'm told in some educational institutions that subject is there, but it is not seriously taken. Where do these kids learn then? From seeing, from the TV, from the print media, or from their peers? And that fall in value is noticed in another way. I'm sure most of us, except me, think we are human beings. We are born humans. We are a species belong to a higher category than animals. Having experienced this factor in the Lokayukta functioning for 5 years, I got a view beyond reasonable doubt that we are not born as human beings. We are born as Homo sapiens, persons. It's only when we, after birth, if we acquire humanism in us, we become human beings. Let me give 2 examples of what I experienced in the Lokayukta. In 2008, a young couple from a place called Bangalore came to me with an 8-month-old child. Kept the child on the floor of my office and said, please look after this child, we're going to run away. I said, please sit down, lift the child, tell me what's the problem. So this child is born with a part of the intestine, lower intestine missing. Consequently, there is no continuity in the alimentary canal system. It eats through the mouth, defecates through the mouth. The couple were told by the local doctor, take this child to a super speciality hospital. And there the pediatric surgeon will regraft the missing part. They took the child to a government hospital. The pediatric surgeon said, yes, he will do it. But it will cost you so much money. The figure was so big that they didn't have the money. They said, we don't have the money. And this doctor says, in that case, I'll make a hole near the rib cage so that the fecal matters can keep going out from there. What sort of a person is he? He had the resources to get a PG degree in pediatric surgery. He had the finances. He still comes and joins a government hospital which is meant for poor people. And demands, why should I say demand, he sucks the blood out of these patients. Can anybody call this person a human being? If not, what's the difference between him and us? Similar thing happened in 2010. It's almost similar. In a place called Koppal. It's a district now in Karnataka. A lady about to deliver a child walks up from the village to Koppal District Hospital and sought a bed. The staff say, not until you pay the money. She didn't have the money. She sends the only person accompanying her to the village to get the money. The staff says, till the money comes, you stay outside the hospital. She walks out, across the road to a bus stop and sits there. And before the money could come, she delivers the child. Right in front of the hospital. Now this was reported in the local newspaper, which was brought to my notice, and they started an investigation. And I found 4 staff members guilty. Of course, they were either kept under suspension or promoted, most probably. Now the first thing is not that. That's not it. This is the individual's part. In Karnataka, there is a scheme called Bhagyalakshmi. That is meant for financial benefit to the poor girl child born in a government hospital. The fact that this person is a poor person, there is no doubt about it. There is no dispute. But the other qualification, the child should be born in a government hospital, they didn't fulfill that qualification. It was refused. I again took up the matter with the government, saying that you are the authority who is responsible and you must face the consequences. After all, there is a principle called vicarious liability. And I persuaded them, and as a great service, human service, as a one-time exemption, this girl will be treated as a girl who was born in the government hospital. What do you say about this? Are these people really humans? But amongst all this lot, the worst culprit is the society. Society respects wealthy people. It will not go into the question how they acquired the wealth. Moment you are in power, moment you are rich, you are invited to sit in the dais and he is felicitated as if you've done a great job. It's not the society sending a wrong signal to others. There's a contribution of the parents also in the present day context. They want their children to become rich quick. Pressurize them. Do everything possible to motivate them. The word is good. Purpose is wrong. System is changing. My dear students, at least the youngsters present here, try and understand the true meaning of the word contentment, satisfaction, or what we call in vernacular as tripti. It is not that feeling you get when you acquire something illegitimately, deprive somebody who is legally entitled for it. That feeling is temporary because you will be suffering from that disease called greed. That doesn't mean once you acquire that, you should keep quiet. No, you must have ambition to grow, ambition to become somebody big, ambition to become rich, because legitimately earned wealth is no product of sin. It is that human feeling when you acquire something legitimately, that feeling is permanent. If we could acquire that, then we can reduce the greed in the other strata of society. You would be then hating the people who are corrupt. You will encourage the society to boycott the corrupt. I am sure no sentence is good enough to change the society, these people's mind. Boycott is the only way Social boycott is the only way by which you can reduce the corruption and maladministration in this country. There is, according to me, there is no other way out. Please live up to that. Become a human being. It's a proud feeling when you can, with knowing what your character is, and if you still feel that genuinely you are a human being, I think it's a great feeling. You'll be proud of yourself. Acquire that feeling. Otherwise, I really do not know what's the future of this country. There's one hope, that nothing can go worse than what it is today. I don't think there is enough space to add any more zeros. And corruption must have reached the peak. There's no place for it to go up. So Newton's theory of gravity may come in, and it has to come down. A change is necessary. A change for good is absolutely necessary. When I was young, a film poet wrote a song. The poet's name is Mr. Pradeep. The lyric goes like this. लाहे हैं तूफान से कश्ती निकाल कर, लाए हैं तूफान से कश्ती निकाल कर, अब इसको रखना, इस देश को रखना मेरे बच्चों संभाल कर. This was a message given to young people of that day, including myself. We have, my generation, even the ones thereafter, have failed India, failed the future generation of India. Don't feel guilty. Change. Acquire true contentment in life. Try and become a good human. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm prepared to take questions. Any questions is okay. I don't get angry easily. Therefore, you are free to ask questions, and I'll try to answer it. I'll take it from there.
Those of you
Thank you, sir, for sharing your very nice illustrations.
My pleasure.
Mine is something similar. It's not my personal question. In a way, it's my personal question, but this is for many of us. Let's say, I know I am at IIT, I'll do something good, I'll start my career, and I'll do nice things. I'm sure about myself. But the things which we are supposed to face is outer world. So my question and my observation since my past is I have noted it, I would like to think about it. Let's say I'm studying here, I'll do something good and I want to start my company after a few years. With difficulties I'll face, I know, I have seen the people, including my relatives and all. So, I will not at all be corrupted in any case, let it be in terms of bribe or anything. But what about the other I have noted out? First is land acquisition. So, everywhere you go, irrespective of any state, the rates are fixed of brokers or some illegal things to get the things there. Second, the collector office to get your things official. That okay. In that office, I have seen the peon who is working there, who is earning around 10-15,000 per month, is actually a millionaire because to get your file from 10th position to 8th position, it takes lakhs and lakhs of rupees. That 10 to 8 positions, if it gets delayed by 2 months, your work will be delayed like anything. So people are doing it, desperate. Third point, local area problems. I mean, there are so-called dons in each and every area. I do not have money, let's say. And even if I do have money, I will not spoil it for these all wrong things. So, for them life is nothing. It's just like an obstacle in video game. But for us, it is precious. So, not a person single-handed can shoot him. It is not legal. And fourth point, even if you find all these things, you get your things done officially, and you do still face any difficulty, you go to court, high court. There, each and every lawyer, each and every judge, I'm not getting personal and I don't have any grudges, but each and every person has a file and the rate are fixed. Now, what a common man should do? Please.
You have narrated about 4 or 5 of about 5,000 such instances that's going on in everyday administration. There is no shortcut. There is no other method except change the person who will sit there next. Not immediately, because there won't be any change. You change the future incumbent to that chair, whatever chair you are referring to, including judges. That's the only way out. If the society starts boycotting each and every one of them, don't invite them for any function in your house. Don't go to any function where he is present. It sends a great message to these people, because in a society, no person can live alone and say, I got enough money, I look after myself. No. He has to be a member of the society where he will have to interact with the people. If people refuse to do that, today what's happened? People who go to jail, come back, contest election, they are elected. Who's at fault? And there's a thinking in the people's mind who go to jail and come back. What's wrong? I'm not the only person who went to jail. Mahatma Gandhi went to jail. The difference is in material. I've been to jail. He has also gone to jail. So nothing wrong with it. And I'll be re-elected. I read out to you, 174 people in the present parliament have got criminal records. How do you change them? That after being convicted by one court, they got elected. And recently the Supreme Court in a judgment said, he who is convicted for more than 2 years cannot contest an election unless he is cleared by the Superior Court. Bail, stay, does not matter. He can't contest. You must be finally acquitted. Then alone you can contest. All political parties have joined together and made a review petition before the Supreme Court. Isn't it disgraceful? Government with great difficulty brought the RTI Act in 2005. And the Chief Information Commissioner says the courts do come under the purview of RTI. And rather not courts, the political parties. All political parties have joined together and said, we are not coming under the political party. We'll amend the law, we'll amend the constitution if necessary. Look at the thinking. I refer to the speeches of the Constituent Assembly, senior members in selecting the political system in this country. They wanted to throw out Rajas and Maharajas and foreigners who ruled, and they wanted to rule themselves. How many of you have read a statement made by UP Minister with regard to Durga Shakti Nagpal, the IAS officer from UP? That minister said, king can do no wrong. Therefore we can do no wrong. King can do no wrong is a concept which Pluto pronounced it. And these days politicians who came to power because of they didn't want monarchy in this country, today consider themselves as kings, so that they can do no wrong. This is the consequences of allowing such people to continue in power. We have to bring about a change. Of course it can't be done tomorrow. You can't remove that person, any person you have in mind, tomorrow. Because they have a protection under Article 309 to 311 of the Constitution. This is the way. I have recommended many cases where I wanted pending inquiry persons to be kept under suspension. I'm not joking here now. They were promoted. This is my experience. Therefore, there should be all-out efforts to change the thinking of the people. Elders, I doubt very much. But your people of your age change, you protest, then things will change.
Thank you, sir. I think most of us would rather agree with you as far as political class is concerned, or maybe even bureaucrats. But when you look at the recent scams and what has happened afterwards, the main beneficiaries were, in many cases, or even most cases, they were not even the politicians. They were corporates. And hardly any newspaper takes a strong stand upon them. When the gas prices are fixed, Reliance goes scot-free. So, when the whole system itself is skewed, how do you expect to come up with some kind of corporate responsibility? I mean, whoever is making laws, they themselves can be bought up by the corporates. So how do you think a change is possible in this system?
Look, if the officer is honest, there can be no question of corporates taking advantage of that at the cost of the country. You take any one of the scams, starting from Jeep scam to Bofors, to 2G, the Commonwealth Games, or Colgate. Ultimate decision is taken by the officers. If that person was honest, the question of any beneficiary getting benefit out of that is not there at all. I also refer that even if there is political pressure, if an officer stands straight and says, no, I will not sign. If you want, you could send a note. I'll say, based on the note of the minister, I am approving this. How many ministers will agree to that? So, there is an element of the person, of one of the wings in the constitutional organs being involved in this scam. Of course, there are people who can pay for buying you. But are you for sale is the question. Everything. 2G scam, corporates are the biggest beneficiaries. Commonwealth Games, corporates are beneficiaries. The Colgate, same thing. But if one officer handling that file were to be honest enough to say, no, I will not allow this, these scams can never take place. Therefore, there is no point. Of course, the corporates will try to buy everybody possible. But all of us are for sale. That's the question. I've been in many situations like that. Temptations are many. It depends upon your self-respect. Depends upon your feeling and respect for honesty. Once you send a message, you don't have the price that to buy me. I think these things will not happen.
Good evening, sir. My name is Kanappa. Most of us know what's happening, the fate of those whistleblowers in all the government institutions. So most of them end up with the known fate. And recently, I read some 3-4 months back, I read some article related to Colgate issue, and some commoners were the one who actually were ready to expose that who is actually involved in that Colgate related case, and they had some article saying that we are worried that how soon the corrupt will get bail and then we will mostly be attacked. Is there any provision that we can have any protection from the government side? So, is there any effort being taken in that sense that these whistleblowers or anybody, other than they are just doing their good, and still they are paying a very high price for that?
You're right. Many whistleblowers have paid the price for what they did in good faith. We do read in the newspaper, including today's newspaper, there is a Whistleblowers Protection Act under the process of being enacted. I don't know when it will be enacted. But some law protecting the whistleblowers is absolutely necessary. But at the same time, we got to look at the practical difficulties of this. Whistleblowers are many. No government can provide physical security to these people unless they withdraw all the security from the politicians. Then I propose they can. But the question is, will they agree with that? Supreme Court is hearing a case now about the security to various people who claim to be under the threat of terrorists or some enemies and others and all, including the red beacons that they flash in the car. I don't know what judgment is likely to come in a month's time. I hope we also direct all those people who are securing the life of those politicians and others are transferred to secure the life of whistleblowers. I hope that will happen. But I agree with you. Yes, today whistleblowing is one method of exposing, which even the investigating agencies don't do. They are necessary. Once it goes to the media, then the investigation becomes more active. But the question is, what is the protection for the whistleblower? I don't know the provisions of the Act. I hope the Act will provide for some security to the whistleblowers. Yes, please.
Good evening, sir. I'm Sharan.
Good evening.
So my simple thing is that when you said when the corporates come to a bureaucrat asking for favors, he ultimately has to put his signature. But you know, we have seen as in the case of Mr. Khemka, when he refuses to put his signature on all those wrong deeds, he gets transferred 40 odd times in 20 years. So what is the way out?
No. These are all, people like Ashok Khemka, the people like Durga Shakti Nagpal are today exception to the rule. But next generation might, because I was watching a television show in regard to the IAS recruits who are undergoing training in Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Business Administration in Missouri the other day. There were 162 people were there. All of them, at least for that day, they took a oath that they will follow Durga Shakti Nagpal in every decision of theirs. So this is the thing. Why am I going to colleges and other institutions where the youth are involved? Because I do find, while interacting, some hope that a percentage of the people will change. There is that burning anger against corruption in a class of people. And that is latent in many cases. I wanted to come out. Speak more about corruption. Generally, don't identify anybody as you become a whistleblower and it becomes a threat to you. Speak more about it. Speak boldly about it. Of course, I read another news item. Somebody in the his or her blog wrote something about Durga Shakti against the government of UP and he was arrested by the police. I mean, to what extent we are prepared to go? Everybody knows. Be it the case of demolition of the wall, which is a mandate of the Supreme Court, any construction without the permission of the government, be it a religious place or commercial place, without notice you can demolish it. Take the sand mafia, one of the biggest mafias in this country. I myself have given at least 50 reports to the government of Karnataka about illegal sand mining and the consequences thereof. I also noticed the fact, yes, in a developing country where construction is going on in a huge quantity, sand is a necessary thing. There is a principle called sustainable development. Utilize. In a manner, you don't permanently damage the eco. Identify areas where you can remove sand without damaging it. I mean, these are the things, that's why the basic thing will come down to the people who are occupying the chair. Ideas are many, but how many of them want to implement it? And that too, when there is a temptation illegal gratification. Yes.
I have a thought process on this topic. I think we started with character building. We, I think, overpowered by corruption at the moment because of number of zeros. The thought that comes to my mind is ultimately society is summation of each individual. So probably one has to look at own level and his own commitment to what the change is required. Number one. Number two, the people who we are talking are become at the moment the king of the country are somewhere ganged up actually. So why good people do not gang up? And why those who are good have same themes want to fight it alone? So that's something comes to my mind. That why the good is not united. Most of the time evil is united because they have a purpose in uniting there. Why good doesn't have a purpose? Because somewhere in the teachings of Vivekananda, character building comes from education. So where are the role models? Even if the role models are seen, who is following them? So is it the literate part? In fact, if Constituent Assembly decided that we are all, even illiterate can be representative, I don't think illiteracy is in some sense indicative of mental inability. So in that process, illiteracy was not a curse. Probably sometimes I felt even literates have done much more harm than the illiterates. Probably even today poor people will be able to fight the battle much more aggressively than the literate people. So what has happened to the literate community in general, and the character aspect that the system should have, the education system should have given to the individuals, and what's your opinion on that line of thought process?
I'll first comment on what you said. Even literates are corrupt. It's not even literates. Literates are corrupt. In today's context, in every scam you take the person who has been identified as a beneficiary or one of the conspirators, both are literates. It's a conspiracy within the literacy. Illiteracy has no meaning there. But coming to the main thing, why doesn't the good people gang up against the corrupt? Thing is, they are good people, they don't want to be involved. That's why I am appealing. As a society, good society, you throw out these corrupt people, not physically, but from your company. Boycott them. Send a message that you are not invited. Then see the difference. It was there earlier. I remember, I come from a very small community. In 50s, in my community, nobody gave a daughter in marriage to the house of a person who was identified or perceived to be corrupt. Today that's a qualification. Recently there was a scam in Karnataka Public Services Commission. Rates were fixed. 60 lakhs for Assistant Commissioner of Police, 80 lakhs for Assistant Commissioner of Revenue. Like that, the rates were fixed. And one area was very easy. If you marry my daughter, no bribe. Look at the man who gets selected. Would he ever be honest? A man who pays bribe and gets the job must recover that money first. Then continue to recover it. I mean, this is the thing. Ultimately, the question, answer to the gentleman who asked there, and to you, sir, is if you don't change the society, we can't. And the biggest fault is we good people. If they're good people, don't come together. They did at one point of time. When Anna Hazare started the fight against corruption, for about 16 months, the middle class, which were dead against corruption, found a platform to express their See, they all came together. But then they have a fatigue factor. They, yeah.
There is a choice then. If good people cannot come together, then individually one takes a resolution like my young friend did that I'm not going to do a harm, then summation will be good.
Correct.
So that's another
If most of the youth today stand up and say, I'm not collecting bribe, I'm not paying bribe, and they stick to that vow of theirs, I think India will change very fast. That's my idea. Going to various educational institutions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In Arthashastra, Kautilya said, man by nature wants to accumulate wealth. Even Karl Marx has said it. Today, the business tycoons are running the government, not the ministers. To challenge corruption, the state has to change its policies from mixed economy to state socialist economy.
Are there corrupt people in socialistic countries? China, for example, you've been reading recently, the very big people who are holding the deputy prime minister's post is being prosecuted. But that corruption is universal. Let us not say that it is confined to capitalistic country, socialistic country, or any other country. It is universal. Only thing is, maybe in degree it may be less. In China, the only sentence for root corruption is death sentence. Still, in the list of Transparency International of most corrupt countries, China is above us. Not above in the sense more honest, more fair. When I took over as Lokayukta Karnataka in 2006, India ranked 74 in 164 countries in the rank of corrupt people. Today, it is 98. I'm not responsible because I took over. But this is a growth that is very good. It can't be unless there is a collective effort of every one of us who believe in honesty, who believe the country is suffering so much money, losing so much money. It could be utilized for the better purpose. Again, I'm very cautious. Assuming that these scams had not taken place, is there a guarantee that all this money would have gone 100% for the benefit of the poor? No, because former Prime Minister of India, late Rajiv Gandhi in 1988 said, out of every rupee the government spends for the benefit of the poor, the beneficiary gets only 15 paise. I mean, you've got to understand the consequences of this. 15 paise. Out of my state budget of 1,36,000 crores, only 15% goes to the poor. And it is a true fact. I have seen in Bangalore, same road being relayed and relayed and relayed every month. Nobody goes and checks it. Poor people, how much can they shout? Even the media get tired.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
You gave the solution for eradicating or containing corruption by boycotting the corrupt system. That is very good thing. It's like containing corruption from, eradicating corruption from bottom to top. Why not about joining the system itself, as Mr. Arvind Kejriwal has done, forward this path? And second question is, like in US, if we have two-party system, then I think corruption will come down. Number of leaders will also come down, and good people. Today, Arvind Kejriwal has to create a new party. He thinks that he cannot join other party. That solution will come.
Let me tell you something personal. I had a heart-to-heart talk with Mr. Arvind Kejriwal because we worked together for about 16 months in our team. Then suddenly, one day, they announced that they are forming a political party. I dissociated myself from the move of Arvind Kejriwal. He came to Bangalore to have a discussion with me. He said, look here, we have tried to get Lokpal bill passed. With great difficulty, we were able to persuade the government to place it before the Loksabha. Loksabha passed it in a different manner, doesn't matter, but it passed it. Rajya Sabha, ulta, and sent it to the select committee. So his argument is, unless people go to the parliament and change the parliament, nothing can do. 100% correct. But the question is, again, like converting the people's mindset, bringing up the value system, it takes time. Can Mr. Kejriwal's party contest 547 or 87 Lok Sabha seats from Kashmir to Kanyakumari? From Assam to Gujarat? How do you know that the people that were willing to contest in their party symbol are honest people? And my further argument was, when we got into this movement, our main enemy was the political parties, because political system in this country is the most corrupt system. We consider them as the biggest enemies. Who will keep an eye on you? Another Anna Hazare should be born. So I said, no, I'm not coming. I'll stay out. I would join hands with those people who want to be the watchdog over all these elected parties. So these are two different ways of looking. But I think the existence of a watchdog body is more important than forming a political party which can influence the rest of the parliament or the assembly only after 50 years. Let us, good, let Arvind Kejriwal, I wish him best, let us start attacking from inside. Some of us who can shout louder will start talking from outside. Let there be an all-round attack on the system that is prevailing. Maybe we'll bring a quicker change.
Due to constraint of time, we'll be taking 2 more questions. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Actually, this is you got nearly 40 years of experience in what you came across. In this, you also sometime tempted by somebody. So how you tackled in this long path to maintain your character? Because you are not in a small position, you are in a big position where you can take the decisions which you can implement the decision. How you tackled that?
Let me tell you one thing. There are still a large section of the people who consider corruption or any action contrary to good values as a sin. I'm one of them. I have understood the meaning of the word tripti in its true sense. You won't believe it. I've been holding various positions, and the only asset I have in the entire world is one apartment in Bangalore. I have nothing. And the moment I became the Lokayukta, there was no requirement in law for me to put my assets and liabilities in the website. But the moment I was sworn in by the governor of Karnataka, the first thing I did was I pulled out, I prepared assets and liability statement and put it in the website of the Lokayukta and insisted that every officer working in the Lokayukta must put it, otherwise he's free to go back to his parent department. And 90% of them filed it. Because the motto is, if I have the right to ask somebody else, show me your assets and liabilities, they must have the right to ask me, show me yours. There's no need for law. Transparency is that. And if you go and look into that today, and you ask me to put my this, I'll tell you it has become less. My assets have become less. And I'm not bothered. I get sufficient pension from the Supreme Court, much more than an ordinary person gets it. I can live comfortably, I would say luxuriously, and I'm satisfied. Now, if anybody else you are talking to or talking about has a similar attitude, you'll never become I don't want to touch any money. I want to. I don't want to touch it because it's a sin. I don't want to sin at this age. And that's the way, if you keep thinking, then I'm sure. Now temptation, yes. There was temptation when I was a law officer. There was a temptation, or rather pressure, as a law officer to take a particular stand. I said, I'd rather quit. I don't want it. Then they didn't want it. You didn't put further pressure because if tomorrow I have to address a press conference, I'll say, who put the pressure on me? Okay, as a judge, yes, there was pressure on me. But when you are straight and open and say, I'm sorry, please don't come to my house. Don't interact with me. Or there are cases when I have said, let this case be transferred before another judge. In open court, I said, because there was a pressure. As a Lokayukta, there was two types of pressures. One is, an officer was working honestly with me, who identified the persons who were responsible for stealing 6 lakhs metric tons of iron ore from a port called Vilikere Port, which the Lokayukta police had seized. That officer was directed to be kept under suspension by the Minister for Ports of Karnataka. I spoke to the Chief Secretary, he said, it can't be done. He says, I'm sorry, sir. Next day I went to the governor and tendered my resignation and made it public. If I can't protect my officers, I don't deserve to be in this office. So 10 days there was a great thing, then something happened, I came back. I was given certain assurances, the things will be alright, I came back. In retrospect, I'm happy I came back because I could complete my mining report. A mining report which is of 26,000 pages, indicting 3 chief ministers, out of which one was then sitting chief minister of Karnataka, 2 other chief ministers of 2 different political parties, 9 ministers of different political parties, 979 officers, IPS, IAS, Indian Forest Service, and Karnataka Administrative Service officers. And recently I read in Hindu, about 2 days back, maybe the Bangalore edition, where the President Chief Minister said, I will implement Justice Hegde's report. It's not necessary. The Supreme Court has already taken cognizance of it. It has appointed a committee called Centrally Empowered Committee to look into it. Even then there was pressure because you can't keep the contents of this report secret. There is voluminous. It has to be typed, printed, bound. Pressures do come. But once you say no to that pressure, your moral fiber will be such that you will never, ever repeat it. That first step is the most difficult step. Take the first step. Like the Chinese proverb says, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Otherwise, no journey will come or go on. Every time there is a temptation, say no to temptation. Then it becomes a habit. If you want to try this, come and see me.
Good evening and thank you for addressing us. My question is that do you really see education playing a role in building characters and strengthening characters as of now? Or shall we just see education as just as a basic necessity and a means of earning livelihood? Do you see some ray of hope from our education?
If education teaches moral values, if education encourages the student to be honest, to be faithful to the society, to be faithful to the institutions of the Constitution, yes, that is the biggest thing, next only to the societal pressure. That's my grievance today is neither the parental pressure in regard to moral values is there, nor in the education there is any such thing, or society just doesn't care about it. Yes, education certainly is a media by which you can encourage moral values in the youth especially.
This is the last question.
Have a nice evening, sir, at first. And my question is, sir, it's very easy to pin a point toward any political party or any person or the person who is on the top. But the fact I would like to discuss, recently I have studied in newspaper and in magazine also, approximately in our society 6.2 lakhs crore scam is happening each and every year. So we are thinking only 1.6 lakhs crores. Why we can focus on the 6.2 lakhs crore? It's we are going to pay in our society itself. It's like a bigger scam, whatever we have never thought about it. And out of this, mostly 30% to 25% to 30% we are paying money as a bribe to the police department as a passport, sir. Even I suffered a lot when I have applied for so fine. How is there any strategy we should opt as a legal things to overcome of this social issue, sir? I mean, in society, this type of corruption is a huge amount. It's happening. Is there any necessity to change a law or any formulate a law?
I don't think you have understood the purpose of identifying or my speaking about certain scams like cheap scam, loafers, 2G, CWG, or these are only examples. I myself admitted it. Only a small percentage of the scam come to the public domain. So when what is come to your knowledge with some facts and figures, it's easier to convince people that look at the amount that you have been lost. You say it is about 600 times more than what I have spoken of, and nobody can speak about all the scams. I think the whole of the day, whatever the number of years your term is, and all, that may not be enough to discuss it. So everybody only wants to listen about it. We just take up some interesting scam and then we talk about it. Yes, there is a law. There is a law which says every public servant receiving any gratification for showing official favor is an offence under the Prevention of Corruption. Now, public servant is not only a government bureaucrat. Everybody who receives any emoluments from the state is a public servant. Members of Parliament are public servants, MLAs are public servants, ministers are public servants, Lokayukta is a public servant. Everybody is a public servant who receives any emoluments from the government. But what is that they are thinking of? Two things I wanted to say, I missed it, I'll take this opportunity of saying. Do these people who get elected, or do these people who are holding high posts, think they are public servants? No. One member of the parliament, when Anna Hazare's movement was going on, addressed the parliament by reading a letter written by Anna Hazare to the Honorable Prime Minister of this country. The first sentence in that letter said, Honorable Prime Minister, do not forget the fact that you are a public servant. He took exception to that. He said, look at the audacity of this man. He's calling the Prime Minister of this country a public servant. Including himself, he's not a public servant according to him. You take any enactment which defines a public servant, or section 21 of the Indian Penal Code, which describes all these people as public servants. But today, like the Rajas, I spoke about the UP minister, their arrogance has changed the entire concept of law, and they are not public servants. The other incident, again, when we were working in the Anna team, when we demanded the government of India to have a dialogue with us, to see the draft Lokpal bill that is prepared by us, and let us come to some decision together. One member of parliament said, today is a minister in the central cabinet, he He said, who are you? Unelected, unelectable tyrants, who are you to interact with the government? We are the ones. Because he's an elected man. Forgetting the fact he's elected by people like us. Forgetting the fact, the very first sentence in the Constitution of India says, we the people of India. It doesn't speak, we the parliament members. They are creatures under the Constitution of India, which was accepted by the people of India, drafted by the Constituent Assembly of India. And these are only instrumentalities in that document. He has forgotten. He has forgotten the very people who elected him. He has forgotten we the people are the most supreme in this country. Don't allow these things getting to the head of these people in power. Nip it in the bud. Tell him you are a public servant. Because we keep quiet, their arrogance goes to any level. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, sir, for the speech and clarifications. Now I request our volunteer Prashant to present fruit bouquet and certificates to our chief guest. Now I request our volunteer Navinji to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening all. We come to the end of a very inspirational evening. For that I would like to thank our chief guest of today, Santosh Hegde sir. Thank you sir. Thank you for addressing all our questions also. And I'd like to thank Professor M. Sachinarayana sir for giving us those nice anecdotes from the life of Swami Vivekananda and connecting it to the character. And I'd like to thank Atma Shraddhananda ji, who has been our mentor and constant source of inspiration. And Professor C. Balaji, who is always with us for any kind of help. And then I would like to thank the different bodies of IIT. First is Office of Dean of Students, ICSR office, and security section. And lastly, and most importantly, like Santosh Hegde sir was telling, the students who are here and the volunteers. Thank you all.
We shall conclude the glorious evening with an invocation by our volunteers, Rahulji and Paul. Before we disperse, I have a few announcements to make. We have a lecture as a part of our 3-day youth conference at MRC, Library 4th floor, on leadership message of Swami Vivekananda by Dr. R. Balasubramanian. We cordially invite all of you to attend the lecture. We have a book sale coming, photo exhibition on life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda at HSB 133. And we have Samskrita Bharati registrations for the course Learn Spoken Sanskritam in 4 days that are taking place at HSB 133. Interested people can register. Jai Hind. Thank you for